Welcome back to State of the Nation with me, Matt Goodwin. Now, this is the scandal that has been dominating social media over the last few days. I'm, of course, talking about the grooming gang scandal, or as I call it, the rape gang scandal. As I discussed yesterday with former Home Secretary Suella Braverman, looking at the latest revelations to come from places like Oxford, we now need a national inquiry about this crisis. The real question everybody out there is currently asking themselves, as I asked the former Home Secretary, is why haven't more heads rolled? Why haven't more people in the establishment been held responsible for this horrific scandal? As GB News' very own Charlie Peters has pointed out, no police officer or government employee has ever been imprisoned for their gross misconduct in dealing with the grooming gang's horror. The grim reality is that for too many people in positions of power, they have ignored this scandal for too long, and they have avoided telling people the truth. Now, I'll be speaking tonight to former Rochdale MP Simon Danczuk about his first-hand experience of that in a moment. But first, just think, who could forget the time that Labour MP Naz Shah liked and retweeted a Twitter post that said those abused girls in Rotherham and elsewhere just need to shut their mouths for the good of diversity, before later claiming it was an accident. And who could forget how the few brave people, courageous people who have dared to speak the truth about this scandal, who have spoken up on behalf of those children, have often then been vilified as an assortment of Islamophobes or far-right agitators. The grooming gang scandal is the greatest stain on our national record, and that's why today I asked Safeguarding Minister Jess Phillips onto the programme to discuss this scandal. And guess what? I didn't hear back. I didn't hear anything. Jess Phillips is normally an outspoken feminist. She talks endlessly about protecting women and girls from misogyny and abuse. But when it comes to the issue of the grooming gangs, when it comes to defending women and girls from predominantly Muslim Pakistani gangs, she seems to be completely silent. She has also rejected Oldham Council's request for a national inquiry, claiming it is for Oldham Council alone to decide how to deal with this. It is not the case for a national inquiry is not needed. But the Labour Party has established nearly 70 reviews and inquiries since taking office. So why the general disinterest when it comes to the issue of the grooming gangs? Well, one explanation, I would suggest, might be this. Labour is simply worried about alienating and losing the Muslim vote. Take the former Shadow Paymaster General, Jonathan Ashworth, one of the Labour Party's foremost frontbench spokespersons during the general election campaign back in July. Well, he unexpectedly lost his seat to Gaza independent Shaukat Adam. Indeed, the independent Gaza MPs were elected at the last election, causing a lot of chaos in Labour-held seats. But even the Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, secured a majority of just a few hundred votes because of that strong Gaza vote in his constituency. And the minister who made this decision, Jess Phillips, nearly lost her seat to a Gaza independent too, securing a majority of just a few hundred votes. So could the fundamental threat that is actually posing the Labour Party in these heavily Muslim seats be the reason behind Labour's reluctance to treat the grooming gang scandal with the attention that it really deserves? Well, either way, let me say this because so few people in the corridors of power appear willing to say it. What we need in this country is a national inquiry to name and shame the complicit public officials in councils, the police and the legal system. And we need to start deporting all those foreign nationals who have dual citizenship, removing them from the country. That's my view. What's yours? Let me know at gbnews.com/yoursay or tweet me at GoodwinMJ. But right now, I'm joined by Reform MP Rupert Lowe, who has been campaigning, I think it's fair to say, in recent weeks and months for the government, for the state to release data and information about mass immigration. But he's now turning his attention to this issue to ask the Home Office a series of pressing questions. Rupert, if I may, what is it about this scandal, this grooming gang scandal, this rape gang scandal, that you find most alarming?
Well, I'm glad you said rape gangs, Matt, because I think that's what they are. And I don't think there's any point in beating around the bush. You've got to call things what they are, and I think they are rape gangs rather than grooming gangs. And I saw J.K. Rowling agreed with me on Twitter today, which is great. So my view on this, it was triggered really by just reading some transcripts as a result, I think, of Fraser Nelson's article last week. And we did a tweet on the back of that. And that seems to have gone completely viral.
And just to be clear, Rupert, this was an article by Fraser Nelson saying that we do not have any problems with integration in Britain. Just to be clear about that, that Britain is integrated.
Indeed. But these are transcripts of they're quite old court cases. But again, I as you know, Matt, I'm new to Parliament, and I think one of the reasons why these things are now breaking is because you've got 5 MPs who are from outside the two-party system. You know, the Blues and the Reds. We've equally got Twitter now controlled by a libertarian in the form of Elon Musk, and as you quite rightly say, he's been tweeting about this quite aggressively and very fairly today. So I think the key here is, like all of the things I've been trying to do, this alerted my attention to the fact that this is another example of government which is not transparent, of issues that have not been transparently brought to the fore, which involves vulnerable young white women. And it is, I think also, it involves power. It involves, the block voting. As you quite rightly said in your introduction, it involves a lot of Labour. There's a lot of Labour running through this. I think there's a lot of questions to be answered by the judiciary. I think there's a lot of questions to be answered by the police. I think we should have a national inquiry. And it was interesting that all the Tories have jumped in on the back of what I've been doing today. And, they've had plenty of chance to do something about this. They've been in power for 14 years, and they haven't picked it up and run with it. Equally, Labour don't show any signs of it. As you say, Jess Phillips is ducking the issue at the moment, which is disgraceful. So my view is quite simply, we should have a national inquiry. It should be totally transparent. It should be available to the public. Those people who are foreign nationals who've raped young white girls should be immediately deported. Those people with dual nationality should have their British citizenship stripped and they should be deported. Any family members who've been involved in this knowingly should be deported if they're foreign. If they're British, if they are a government official, if they're from the police, if they're from the judiciary, I don't care. Everybody should be treated equally under the law. They should all have the full force of the law brought down on their heads.
Great, Rupert, thank you.
Matt, this is a disgraceful example of right and wrong.
Yeah.
There's no grey in this. This is black or white. It's right or wrong, and we need this to be absolutely, like the post office, like a lot of other things that need to be sorted out. This needs to be absolutely dealt with in a transparent and clinical way.
Well, Rupert, just let me pick up on that post office point. I don't think anybody viewing this would disagree with that point. This is fundamentally about evil. I don't even think this is about criminality. Having viewed the court transcripts, it goes way beyond criminality. This is evil, as close to evil as I've ever seen in my lifetime. So, national inquiry, yes, agree with you. Deporting foreign nationals with dual citizenship. We should be using the foreign aid budget. We should be using the visa programs to apply pressure on the likes of Pakistan to take these guys back. I mean, are you saying basically then that Reform are going to be making this a big issue in the year ahead? Is this going to be part of your pitch to the country?
Well, as you've probably seen, I've posted on Twitter. We've asked, I think it was 16 questions gone in today to the Home Office. We put them on Twitter. They're pretty clinical. In the same way that we've asked questions about almost every aspect of government. And I have to tell you that almost every stone I turn up, I find a cowpat underneath riddled with maggots. So, look, I mean, we need some proper government, Matt. And I think we need ministers who are capable of holding the civil service to account. We need people who are not frightened. And the job of an MP and the job of government is to govern. And it's to hold people to account, and it's to ask difficult questions. It's to actually raise issues that are in the interests of the British people. And the more I sit in Parliament at the age of 67, having worked like a lot of other good English people have worked their way, they pay their taxes, they assume everybody in Parliament knows more than they do and is better qualified than they are. Let me tell you, Matt, they very definitely aren't.
Yeah,
and for all those people who think they're being governed by an elite, they're not. And it's up to the electorate through the ballot box at the next ballot. They need to send a very, very strong message to Westminster, to the civil service, to the government, to the judiciary, to the police. They've had enough, and they're going to change the way in which we govern by electing a government from outside the existing structures.
Thank you, Rupert Lowe. Thank you for your time. We're all enjoying watching you on Twitter and X.